Mile High Huddle.
I want to get your thoughts on what Drew Lock had to say about Joe Flacco's infamous comment. And in fairness, Zach, this is something that you and I have joked about more times than I could ever remember, both privately and on the podcast, what Joe Flacco said. And before I actually get to Lock's quote, Zach, I think it would be appropriate to first read and take our listeners back to what Flacco actually said. And that is, first and foremost, okay, really quick, just a quick detour. When asked immediately following the draft, there was rookie minicamp, and then I want to say a mandatory minicamp. Either way, the first opportunity we got to talk to Joe Flacco after the draft, he was asked, basically, hey, you're going to take this Drew Lock kid under your wing? What are you going to do there? You're going to be the mentor. Here's what he said, quote, "You have to be careful with how you answer that, but I think that is, like I said, it's kind of Rich Scangarello's job. Listen, I have so many things to worry about. I'm trying to go out there and play good football. I'm trying to go out there and play the best football of my life. As far as a time constraint and all of that stuff, I'm not worried about developing guys or any of that. That is what it is. I hope he does it well. I don't look at that as my job. My job is to go win football games for this football team," close quote. Fast forward to today, Zach, this week, Locke appears on the Zapped podcast, which is hosted by, what's the fellow's name? Bob Menery, or Menery, however you pronounce that. And he was asked about that quote and just, Joe Flacco, did he help you out? What was it like working with Flacco? And I'm just going to read you this first quote. We'll talk about it, and then I want to read you the second remark. Here's what Locke told Menery, quote, "Everyone talked about the quote. People were asking him that question, and he gave what a winning quarterback would say. His job is to win games. It's not to help a young guy." And of course, the media blew that up and they talked about it for multiple weeks. But at the same time, if you're in his shoes and you say, yeah, my job is to go get a young guy ready, and not to mention winning football games, that's a bad look. Like, all right, this year's down the drain. We're just getting this young guy ready. So I think from my perspective, I knew where he was coming from, close quote. So Zach, as I was writing up the piece, just kind of analyzing this myself, the one thing that jumped out to me is that it really tells you a lot about how the way that Locke interpreted that actually tells you a lot about his maturity as a quarterback, which is, especially for a young guy as a rookie, and even now just going into his second year, is maybe not quite extraordinary, but it is unique. He didn't look for the negative. He didn't seek out the hole in the boat or take it as a shot across the bow. He almost seemed to kind of put himself in Flacco's shoes and kind of empathize. But what was your empathize, I should say. What was your reaction to what Locke had to say?
I mean, I think you're right in the sense that it shows his maturity and that he's kind of wise beyond his years. But what else is Locke going to say? I mean, this is still a young guy. He's unproven. He wants to get in the Broncos' good graces and pretty much the NFL's good graces and position himself like a franchise quarterback. But to me, with Flacco off the team now, it's water under the bridge or water under the statue, as the case may be with Flacco. I just don't expect Locke to say anything else. It might not have been a job for Joe Flacco per se to develop Drew Lock or bring him along, but that every great quarterback does that with no hesitation. Brady did it in New England with Matt Castle, Jarrett Stidham now, before he left. And then he did it with Jimmy Garoppolo. He didn't have a problem with it. He didn't like it, but he didn't come out outwardly and say, it's not my responsibility. It comes with the territory. If you want to be a franchise understood quarterback, you have to do that job. You have to train your underlings, and you have to kind of bring them along for the best interest of the team. Flacco didn't have the best interest of the Broncos in mind. It was the best interest of Joe Flacco. He wanted to get his career back on the right track. He wanted to be the understood quarterback. He wanted to be the no-doubt quarterback. Didn't work out that way. I just don't see Locke saying anything else. Not trying to make this a Flacco rant right now. It shows his maturity. It's the right thing to say. But would he have said those things if Flacco was still on the team today? I don't know.
I'm with you in that you don't know how much of this is lip service and Drew Lock. That first quote anyway is Drew Lock just being, a smart PR guy and knowing that this isn't the time to drop any kind of a facade and just, kind of toe the company line. But I honestly felt like there was some truth to that, at least in the sense that the way he interpreted it partially. Now, he still might have taken it on some level as kind of a, territorial pissing of sorts, right? But I do think he did kind of understand it. He wrapped his head around, well, yeah, maybe maybe I could put myself in those shoes that Flacco's in right now. Here's the second thing, though, when it came to the dynamic that existed between Joe and Locke and what Joe did to help Locke toward the end of his time on IR. That's Locke's time on IR, right before his first start. Here's what he said, quote, "But Joe was great to me in the quarterback room. Whenever I needed anything, he was always there to answer that question, especially when I made my first start. He instilled some confidence in me before that game. He was just like, just go do you. Go do what you do best, and you're going to win this football. I really appreciate him saying that to me. Now, here's where it kind of gets gushy. You idolize that guy. He won a Super Bowl. He comes in, he throws it like no one I've ever seen. He's got an absolute cannon. So I thought he was the man. And for him to say that to me, I appreciated it." Closed quote. Your thoughts, Zach?
It's the most apathetic advice out there, the most ambiguous advice. Go do you, go be you. That doesn't help anything out. That's the most generic advice possible. And Locke is praising Flacco for answering a question in the quarterback room. That's what I'm saying. I mean, literally, Flacco did the bare minimum, and at times even less than that. And the second part of that quote, Chad, about being one of the best to ever do it, and he throws such a good ball, it's lip service, to use your phrase there. It absolutely is. Locke is a good guy. He's a consummate professional. He's wise beyond his years, but that is nothing but fluff material from a young quarterback.